Hello everyone. Welcome to part 1 of my presentation of the history of Yugoslavia. In part 1 I'm going to be talking about the birth of Yugoslavia to the liberation from Axis occupation. Now let's stop wasting time, and begin. Let's start in 1914, pre-World War I. Austria-Hungary has recently colonized the area of Bosnia, and the local Bosnians aren't very happy about it. A revolutionary group decided they were going to do something about it. So with the help of Serbia, they assassinated the Archduke of Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary is understandably pissed and sends an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia rejects the ultimatum and Austria declares war on Serbia. This starts World War I. World War I isn't terribly important to the story, but Austria-Hungary is. Austria-Hungary is made of the areas of Austria, Hungary, its Slavic colonies Bosnia, Czechoslovakia, and Croatia, and parts of Ukraine, Poland, Romania, and Serbia. At the end of World War I in 1918 the Allies granted independence to the colonies of Austria-Hungary, and handed out various pieces of land to other countries. As for Austria-Hungary, it was divided in two. The Serbian government then had an idea. During the Treaty for World War I, as known as the Treaty of Versailles, Serbia approached certain countries that were once a part of Austria-Hungary. These countries were Croatia, Montenegro, and Bosnia. Serbia requested that they would unify to create a stronger nation to protect themselves. The Allies agreed with the unification. And so it was, the Kingdom of Slavens, Croats and Serbs was formed. The kingdom had constitutional monarchy. The first king was Peter I. Peter was from a Serbian dynasty, showing how Serbs dominated the country and the government. Peter only lasted 3 years of being king. After he died his son took the throne, Alexander I of Yugoslavia, also known as Alexander the Unifier. In 1929 he abolished the Constitution of 1921 and established a royal dictatorship due to tensions in the government. A few months later he renamed the country to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia and outlawed all political parties in an attempt to unify the country. In 1943 he was assassinated on a diplomatic trip to France. Quite a bit just happened, so let's recap. Austria-Hungary was split after losing World War I, and the Kingdom of Croats, Serbs and Slavens was one of the countries that came out of it. The kingdom was a constitutional monarchy until Alexander I came to power. He established a dictatorship, abolished political parties, changed the country's name to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, and then he died. Now that we're done, let's continue. Alexander's son, Peter II was still a minor, so they handed the crown to his cousin, Paul. Paul wasn't too keen on being king, which is exactly why Alexander chose him to bear the crown, because he wouldn't overthrow his son. Paul came into power during the Great Depression and now it was his job to solve it. Paul created economic ties with Germany, selling them mineral and agricultural products even though he distrusted Hitler and Mussolini. In 1941 the Axis powers requested that Paul sign the Tripartite Pact, which would involve Yugoslavia with the Axis. Paul reluctantly signed the pact, much to the disapproval of the Royal Yugoslav Army. 2 days later the Royal Yugoslav Army with the help of the UK forcefully removed Paul from power and proclaimed Peter II of age. Hitler took offense to this and 10 days later, German and Italian forces began to invade. It only took 12 days for Yugoslavia to fall. To be fair to the Yugoslav army, the army was ill-prepared, outdated, and ill-equipped. Paul was sent to house arrest in British Kenya, and Peter II was sent to Britain. Yugoslavian territory was split among the Axis powers, except for Croatia. It was turned into a puppet state. Croatia had a dictatorship and was ruled by Ante Pavelic, who dreamed of exterminating all Serbs and other minorities. He also made every crime punishable by death. From the get-go of the Nazi occupation of Yugoslavia, resistance movements rose. A man named Draza Mihailovic rose up with remnants of the Royal Yugoslav Army, Serbian nationalists, and royalists, and began a campaign of guerrilla warfare. They were known as the Chetniks. The Chetniks were supported by the Allies, and the Yugoslav government in exile. But the Chetniks weren't alone. In June 1941, when Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, a socialist movement, also known as the Partisans, rose up. They were led by Josip Broz Tito, a Croat Slovene. He wanted to create a socialist republic in Yugoslavia, and the Nazi occupation was in the way. He and his partisans began another campaign of guerrilla warfare in Yugoslavia. At first the Chetniks and partisans cooperated and worked together on various missions, but as the partisans started to gain more land, and more supporters, the Chetniks began to fear them. Slowly, but surely, the Chetniks began to cooperate with the Axis powers in countering the partisans, openly stating that the partisans were their worst enemy. In 1943 there was definitive proof that the Chetniks were collaborating with the Nazis. In response the Allies switched sides, and began supporting Tito. To make things worse, in the summer of 1944, under British pressure, P2 II capitulated, and the Prime Minister Ivan Subasic took power, dismissed the Chetniks, and openly presented the partisans as the only remnants of Yugoslavia. With this announcement, many Chetniks left for the partisans. Later in September the Soviets reached Yugoslavia, and assisted the partisans. In 1945 the Nazi occupation fell, and on November 29, the Federal People's Republic of Yugoslavia was formed. Alright, so that's all for now. Next time we will cover the beginning of the Yugoslav Republic, Tito's struggle with Stalin, its breakup, and the effects of Yugoslavia. See you next time.